Hey Xanthi, I'm looking for a new game to play, something short, like about 8 hours long.
How about In Stars and Time?
Okay, sounds great.
And that, dear audience, is called lying. It's very important in selling video games to your friends.
In Stars and Time is a wonderful indie RPG, opening strong with subversion of cliché by having each cliché already be done. The world is in danger? That's old news. The hero has been called to action! Yeah, duh. Everyone who's anyone knows Mirabelle. You gotta go collect the 5 MacGuffins from each dungeon to open the villain's keep. Done and dusted. A band of misfits have become a found family. That's why we're here! All because In Stars and Time is a cliché RPG game that doesn't start at the beginning of the hero's journey, but at the end of it. So much so that you're already level 45 and plenty powerful enough to cut your way through the evil king's defenses and save the day. There's only one problem, and that is you, Sifrin. You aren't ready to see the adventure's end. So, with a slumber party, tasty snacks, and a whole lot of unresolved romantic tension from the buffest teddy bear you'll ever lay eyes on, we're off to see what the end of the hero's journey holds for someone with no home to go back to. With the several dozen hours of writing this 8-hour game contains, all full of clever jokes, in-depth characters, magical systems, consistently getting a good laugh out of me every 15 minutes, and the merit of making my friend lose a Twitch stream bet that I wouldn't cry at the end, I give In Stars and Time, for mechanics and fun, a gold star, for story and atmosphere, a diamond star, time and cost, a heap of diamond stars, and for musicality, a silver star. In a final certification of 10 out of 10 would cry again. And the tears are, after all, how the toxicity escapes. So, before we go into the spoilers bit, I do want to say that there's a good reason the non-spoiler bit was so short. This game is well worth playing without knowing a damn thing about what's going to happen. So now that I've said all that, if you've played it already or need more convincing, then here those spoilers come. Now from the top. So, with a slumber party, tasty snacks, and a whole lot of unresolved romantic tension from the buffest teddy bear you'll ever lay eyes on, we're off to see what the end of the hero's journey holds for someone with no home to go back. You are dead. Sifrin is dead. They stepped into the castle, and in under 10 minutes, the party's rogue is dead. You are dead. You failed to stop the very first trap. You know, your job. And for that, now you're very distinctly dead. And you're back again. For anyone who's a fan of anime, you'll understand a chilling word about what this game really is. It's not a fun-filled time loop power fantasy romp, but a deconstruction of the time loop genre. This boon of invulnerability quickly turns to a curse of entrapment, with our protagonist living the same 2 days over and over and over again. And this game gets away with it very well by doing something that very few games do. In all the right ways, In Stars and Time is a game that takes its time. In fact, this very reason is why it took me so long to decide what to write about in this game, because there's so damn much to talk about. I can make an entire video on each element of the game's core themes, ranging from victims of distrust, being unable to see a future worth living in, how to write hella gay characters, the mental effects of being Groundhog Day'd, found family, the importance of small gestures, the very realistic representation of the effects of trauma, the intersection of positive and toxic masculinity that is Isabeau, toxic religious expectations with Mirabelle, feeling cultureless like Odile, being a tween, and the ways in which wishes being real magic would be a very, very, very bad world to live in, as the odds of a final apocalypse are so astronomically high that it makes the Cold War feel cozy by comparison. And also the deliciousness of pain au chocolat. But that would take a very, very long time to talk about, because this game is hella long. Something I began to appreciate 16 hours into this 8-hour game, thank you, Xanthia. And those 20 hours were incredibly enjoyable. While the game's length couldn't be ignored, the hours did indeed fly by. At no point did the story feel dragged out. They took their time, using every single one of their 24 hours of content to build up to a finale full of magical interactions, conspiracies, and mysteries that were truly obvious in hindsight and perfectly sensical, but seemed impossibly complex for a simple 30-hour story to contain. Anyone who's listened to me talk about RPGs has heard my internal conflict with this genre. Somehow it's managed to be my most hated while still containing my favorite games of all. My taste for the genre is particularly upset by how turn-based combat gets into the role-playing aspects of role-playing games, such as in Amori, in which I got so sick of pointless combat between cutscenes that I dropped it after the first act despite how good the characters and story was. Well, In Stars and Time delivers on a premise that demands it takes its time. The consequences of characters' actions, the complicated dynamic nuances that lead to their decisions, the ever deeper spirals into depression and desperation. These can't be done in a simple 8-hour game in a way that feels earned. The landslide is too slow to be believed. The small slips can't truly be appreciated before a tumble. And the truth can't hit so hard if the storm cloud didn't have days to hang overhead. With 35 hours of charming, intriguing, and heart-wrenching writing, it doesn't wait for this either. The signs of the storm clouds are there from the start. Without hesitation, the writer sets up the very unique premise of beginning at the end of the typical RPG journey, and it only goes wild from there, introducing unique cultures, sensical plot twist after plot twist, joking hints about a character's seemingly magical forgetfulness, and a woven landslide into desperate insanity that could only be learned through just how long this 40-hour title really is. Hence why the plethora of detailed topics it touches upon are all necessary to such a long title. If the game's only thematic premise was Sifrin's bad memory, or Isabeau being manlier than any truck owner in America could ever hope to be, then it would grow stale rather quickly. It doesn't matter how many new groan-worthy puns the writer can come up with, if 47 hours in we're still on the same topic as at the 2-minute mark. It doesn't take a shallow dive into these topics either. With 50 hours of story-rich gameplay, each topic is given time to develop and integrate into the story. Topics that many would often consider a token inclusion or just a little quirk instead of being fully fleshed out, but rather they become a core part of the world and characters. As such, we are able to see the story go deeply into the consequences and slow therapy of a victim of distrust, with someone who is so fearful of the world and future that they invoke a literal time loop due to being unable to see a future worth living in. They and their found family are hella gay, shown in both the boons and curses that come with being Groundhog Day. Time is given to appreciate the sum of small gestures, like a very expensive cloak meant to keep someone very warm for a very long, long time. The only lingering proof of a lost family and the consequences of the trauma of losing them. The game managed to take a deep dive into the complex nuances of gender and masculinity, showing in full the ways in which Isabeau built themselves up as a knight in shining armor, all while wishing he could retrieve the bits of a nerdy kid they left behind to do so. It's able to truly flesh out the ways in which the perfect maiden Mirabelle feels like a true heathen, rejecting the people she's expected to become and being told not to become attached to the parts of herself she loves. It has the time to discuss feelings of having no true home and culture, seeking it through others. It shows the confusion of being not quite a kid anymore, hating adults for doing things you don't understand, and it shows a well-thought-out world full of unique, dangerous, mysterious, and wondrous magics. And finally, in a mere 58 hours of story, In Stars and Time does make a very good argument for the delightfulness that can only be found in Pain au Chocolat. So, do I recommend this game? Yes, I do, because every one of these topics is going to be found with far more attention than most titles would ever let it deserve by taking its time and filling every single second with a wonderful moment. So, what are you waiting for? Also, Alina, what the hell is this? Thank you for listening to my review of In Stars and Time. I took a long delay between review videos because of this one. It just was a very long game that I streamed voice acting with my friends, and oh boy, it took a while. I've also been very busy, but also productive this year, so it's shaping up to have a lot more content down the pipe than I have the last 6 months. So I hope to see you then, dear audience. Goodbye.